Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be doing a comparison to see how the Gansai Tambi paints work wet into wet alongside my transparent tube paints, which are mostly Daniel Smith. I have been noticing that when I paint with the Gansai Tambi and use the wet into wet technique, that I'm not getting the bleeding that I should get, the spreading of the paint that I should get, that I get with transparent watercolors. So I'm just doing a quick comparison. The paintings that I'm doing are just nothing paintings, so they're not very great, but they will show you the difference between the two. So let's get started. Okay, so here I'm going to be starting with the set of 36 Gansai Tambi paints. They're made by Kuretake, and I'm taking my watercolor brush and I'm wetting down the paper until it has a shine on it. And as that is soaking into the paper a little bit, then I'll get my paint ready. And I'm going to start with my sky. As you see, I put the blue in. Now I'm putting this red in, or pink. And you can see the colors are not bleeding into each other. They're not spreading apart. That red just sits there, which is somewhat surprising to me. I thought there'd be more bleeding than that. So as I finish up the sky, then I will move on. I'm going to grab a different brush here, and then I'll move on with the green, and I will begin a tree. And again, my watercolor is not spreading out at all. It's just sitting there, almost like it's sitting on top of the paper. Now I'm putting in some ground, and you'll see that I do get some bleeding with that orangish color. I don't like it though, so I'm going to take it off, and then I'm going to do it again. I re-wet the paper since I dried it off, and you can see I do get a little bit of bleeding there with that red color, but not much. Now that sort of burnt sienna color did bleed a little bit better, and the blue that I used hardly moved at all. Now I'm using a mixture of the black and a brown, I think, and not really getting any bleeding at all with that. So I'm just putting in a quick trunk on the tree, and then I'm going to go back and add a little more paint while it's still a little bit wet, and you can see it's just sitting on top of the paper again. And I noticed that at the end, I'm going to be adding a little more green to the tree as well. And at the end, I noticed when the paint dried, it had a sheen on top of it. It was somewhat shiny, which made me think that maybe the paint was just sitting on top of the paper like a gouache would sit on top of the paper. So I'm just finishing up here, and then I'm taking this tape off, and I'm really unhappy with it, but you can kind of see a sheen when I tilt it up. See how it has a shine to it on the paper, and it's totally dry. Very strange. So now let me do it again, this same crappy looking tree. I'm going to do it again with my Daniel Smith watercolors, and there's a couple. There may be a Van Gogh and then some Winsor Newton artist paints in with that, but I think I used all Daniel Smith on this painting from what I can remember. I'm sorry, I did it last week and never got around to editing it. So now I will take my brush again, and I'm going to go ahead and wet the entire, my tape is sticking to my mat. I'm going to wet down the entire paper again, and again I wet it down really good with a lot of water, as you can see. I'm just letting that water soak right into the paper, and then also leaving a little bit of a sheen on top. You want that sheen to be there. I had a little resistance there, and that was from when I was putting tape down on my paper. I slipped and my paint stuck. or paint, my tape stuck. And as it stuck to the paper, it created a resist. And then taking that little hair off, I put some scratches into my paper, so you'll notice that I'll have lines on the paper, which is fine because this was just a practice study to see what happens. Now here I'm adding the blue, and already, see, I'm going to add a scratch there with my pen. Already the blue is spreading around, which is really nice. I'm adding more, and it's still spreading. And the same with the pink. See how it's bleeding and spreading around, mixing in with the other paint on the paper, creating a purple. And the same with the Pernon orange that I added. You can see the scratch there now. Then I added a little more yellow in at the bottom, like I did on the other painting, and now I'm going to go ahead and start the tree. Now I haven't re-wet the paper at all like I did on the other one, and these are both, well, they're not the same size. This one's actually a little bigger, so you'd think I would have to wet the paper again, but look how the green is still spreading around, and it's spreading right into the colors that are underneath. It's mixing with that pink and creating kind of a brown color. But it's continuing to spread. Now I'm putting in the trunk, just real quickly. I'm not trying to make this any great masterpiece. Now I need to do the ground. I'm not sure if I re-wet it here. Oh, I'm drying this a little bit so that the trunk will not spread into the ground. And I'm showing you the difference already. Now I'm re-wetting the paper around the trunk so that I can put the ground in. And this is the same thing that I did on the other painting. I did re-wet it at the bottom. Just mixing up my colors. And that's bleeding really well. I'm really fond of the wet into wet technique, so that's what kind of upset me about the Gansai Tambi paints. They're not bad paints, but if you're going to go out and you want to use the wet into wet technique, just beware that most of those colors in that palette will not bleed. They will not work for wet into wet technique, but the others, some of the others will. It's just, you've got to figure it out. You got to go through each paint and figure out which ones will bleed and which ones won't. For me, that's why I like transparent colors, because I know they're always going to do well with wet into wet. And now I'm just adding a little more green to the tree like I did on the other one so that they were even, because after the other one had dried, I added a little more green onto it. So I'm doing the same thing here. And then I will show you the difference between the two in just a second. Okay, now here I'm going to add or darken the trunk on this tree like I did on the other tree, just so that I've done the same thing on both. Okay, the Gansai Tambi paint is on the right. You can see that there's more wet into wet technique on the left one. Have a great day, everyone. Here's a blooper for you. Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to be doing a comparison with the Gansai... Did it again.